Well, folks, good day to you, one and all. And yeah, here we go. Season 11, Formula Forwards down at Donington. And this is race number one that's about to come off the grid. And I think this is going to be very close. In fact, I've got no doubt that this is going to be a very, very close race. What we've seen in the qualifying, it's been amazing stuff. Robert Briggs and Graham Stephen on the front row of the grid. Gerald Ferree with Carl Lawrence up on the second row of the grid. Leon van Wyk with Raymond Duggan. Michael Stephen down in seventh. I don't think you'll be too happy with that one. I think you will have hoped to have been a little bit higher up than what he is there. JJ van der Merwe once again in the top 10 from Sandro Bukari, the fastest of the Grandmasters. And in fact, he was out at Killarney International Raceway practicing recently and will be racing tomorrow at Killarney International. We'll wait for the last of the guys to grid. Carl Lawrence, Michael Stephen, Yaz Samai, and Johan Engelbrecht still to come up onto the grid. So this is going to be the way that it's going to be coming off the line. There we go. We are at Donington Park and we're racing in the Formula 1600s. These cars are very, very evenly paced with a fixed setup. There is one pit stop, which is compulsory. You can do it on lap number one, or you can do it on the second last lap, not on the last lap. They don't do it Michael Schumacher style, where going through the pit lane is shorter to get past the start-finish line, even at reduced speeds, than what it is to stay on the track, and then you wait till the last lap and you go through the pit lane. We ain't going to be doing any of that. Robert Briggs, Graham Stephen, who's going to get the drop going down towards turn number one? It's going to be interesting. Carl Lawrence is not up yet. Michael Stevens not in yet. We're 1 minute 53 into the gridding. Are they going to make it in time for the race? It's only Carl Lawrence that's not there. Everybody else is there. We're just about good to go. And away we go from that standing start. And Robert Briggs has got a good drive. Graham Stephen pulls right in there behind him. Gerald Ferree holding sway, but Leon van Wyk's going to try and have a look around the outside. Leon van Wyk's got good drive. Leon van Wyk will stay ahead of Michael Stevens on the inside line. That Iron Brew car, that is Raymond Duggan. Raymond Duggan's got Willem Botha that's in there behind him as they go down through that first complex of right-handers through the left-hander. Got to go all the way across now to the left-hand side. Carry good speed up the hill. This is lap number one of a possible 16. Graham Stephen doing a brilliant job at this stage of the fight. He's holding them all out. Robert Briggs from Gerald Ferree. Leon van Wyk in the Being IT car. It looks, a bit of contact there. Leon van Wyk drops down. It's Raymond Duggan in the Iron Brew car going past the Being IT car that moves just a little bit higher up in the pack. JJ van der Merwe stuck a long way back with Sway Schubert, Stephen McCarthy and Paul Webber. And Captain Peter van der Spey finds himself a long way down from the man where he would like to be alongside, and that being a Sandro Bukari. Through the complex they go. It's still Graham Stephen from Robert Briggs, Gerald Ferree in that third position. They line astern as they come down towards the second last corner. Hard on the brakes, covers that inside line, but will it work for him on the exit of the corner? Robert Briggs didn't line it up the way that he needed to make use of that with a deep entry and a late apex to try and cut that off. Once again, Graham Stephen closing off on that inside line. That's the end of lap number one. Look at that as they all run through line astern past the start finish line. The front three starting to break away. Graham Stephen from Robert Briggs and Gerald Ferree. Michael Stephen just a smidgen further back. But remember, Michael Stephen did start further back. I think it was down about 7th position. He actually got the fastest first lap of all, and it is game on up front between Robert Briggs and Graham Stephen. Gerald Ferree not losing out whatsoever. He stays using the whole track and a little bit more. Gerald Ferree's not waiting around. Gerald Ferree is actually pushing very hard on the back of Robert Briggs. I wonder if he thinks that Robert won't be able to hold on to Graham. Thus, he's got to get past Robert pretty quickly. Because in real terms, the easiest way for Gerald to go to the front end of the pack, and we stick with those front three, is in fact to let Robert and Graham fight it out. They fight it out, they will slow one another down. That will make a gap for him. Gerald Ferrie's not waiting for that. Gerald Ferrie is on the attack. Graham Stephen is on the defense once again. But the interesting part is Michael, that started down in 7th position, he's now starting to close up. Close that line off completely. Make sure you are on that inside line. And Michael Stephen, as we said, from 7th. And with that, Michael Stephen gets himself completely tied up as he went for the position. It didn't work out for him. He then got a knock on the wheel as well. And that's going to cost him very dearly. The only man that did not make it into the race was, in fact, Carl Lawrence, that for some other reason was not able to make it in there. Robert Briggs now puts up the fastest lap of the race, as Robert Briggs has gone to the front. In fact, Leon van Wyk came through behind him, a 137.341. So Robert Briggs now leads out, the man that was in 2nd position ahead of Graham Stephen, and Gerald Ferrie still in that 3rd position. It's Willem Botha and Leon van Wyk that are having a hell of a humdinger battle between the two of them. They swap positions, and Leon then went off after making the passing maneuver. Willem got back in front of him, and see no sign writing on Willem's car. But the interesting thing now for the guys up front is that Willem has now got open road. Willem has now got open ground in front of him, and he has an opportunity to go and fetch Gerald, Graham and Robert. But while he does that, he's got to try and hold off Leon van Wyk, because Leon van Wyk in the being IT16 goes for the dive up on the inside. And luckily they don't touch. The experience and deft handling there by Leon van Wyk, going for the move but not messing it up. Michael Stephen back down into that 6th position as they work their way through. 0.4 of a second between Graham Stephen and Robert Briggs as they work their way through. That's towards the last corner. Robert Briggs very confident, not even closing the line. In fact, Robert Briggs, if we look from upstairs, is starting to get a little bit of a gap. Look at that. Robert Briggs, 137.210 as opposed to the 137.97 tenths of a second that he managed to take out in that lap. And there you can see where the difference comes in. Gerald Ferrie now ahead of Graham Stephen. A little bit of gap back to Leon van Wyk. Leon van Wyk's going to find himself in a little bit of no man's land. There is Leon sliding it through there. Once again, a brilliant drive by that man in the Labatt's Cannon car. Sandro Bakari, the leading Grandmaster. He's actually doing exceptionally well recently, is Sandro Bakari. And I think he definitely qualifies for driver of the day, upcomer of the season, best prospect, you name it, one of those. Stephen McCarthy just a little bit further back, but already up into the top 6. JJ and Leonardo have gone into the pits. We've lost out on Yaz Sumai, and Carl Lawrence didn't start at all. The closest battle out there now is in fact Graham Stephen on the back end of Gerald Ferrie. You can see they've now spread out slightly. If we look back from the lead vehicle, we're right on board with Robert Briggs there. You can see Gerald Ferrie, that's right up there behind him. Gerald Ferrie is really on song with this one. There's no doubt about it. Gerald Ferrie is actually becoming very, very competitive. I somehow think, and I speak under correction, but I think that his son Leighton bought some new equipment, and I think the hand-me-down equipment was what is now being used by Papa Bear. And I think that is what has made the difference. I speak under correction, either that or a whole bunch of practice and a new look at it. But there's no doubt that Gerald Ferrie is definitely a top contender in the series. So from the top end down, it is Robert Briggs. Behind Robert Briggs, we've got Gerald Ferrie, the man I've just been speaking about. Then we've got the Graham Stephen car. He's always up there in the front end of the field. You'll never find him anywhere else unless something goes desperately wrong. Behind him, we've got Leon van Wyk. Then we've got a gap back to the leading Grandmaster, Sandro Bakari. Behind Sandro McCarthy, Stephen McCarthy, just outside of the top 5. Lovely drive there by the slightly graying Stephen. Paul Weber from Andre Steenkamp. Andre Steenkamp in the Batmobile. Let's have a shofty from inside. As you go up that blind rise, you've got to determine your line before you go in there. Carried a lot of speed into that, did Paul Webber, and even with the strip scene, that will keep him ahead of Andre Steenkamp. Now we come down to that left-hander and right-hander. Clip that curbstone as best you can, and that side, if you go a little bit too far, it gives you penalty points, and if you do that lap for lap, you can pick up a penalty point on the left-hander, a penalty point on the right-hander, and before you know it, you've got a drive-through penalty, taking a nice tight line. That'll close him up just a little bit. Andres Steenkamp will close up on the back of Paul Webber, going up to the last corner, right towards the outside of the circuit. Be very careful. You've got to lift off lightly on the brakes because you go down to first gear to get good drive out of the corner. So you've got to really feather off the brakes as you do that last section of your braking on the beginning of your turn-in marker on that corner to ensure that the back end doesn't step out. These 1600s are very, very tail happy under deceleration, and a touch on the brake with a turn on the steering wheel, you are going to be swapping around and heading in the opposite direction. Well, head in the direction that you were, but unfortunately it'll be tail end first. Good drive through that middle section. Steenkamp now closing back up onto the back end of Webber. We've got to go to the front end of the field because Gerald Fourie all over the back of Robert Briggs. Coming through to that left-right-hander. There's no ways you can go to a best through there. The guy here, both of them cutting it as much as they can. You've actually got to pull it kind of hard to get it off the curbstone there on the left-hand side. You tend to stay right on the left here, deep in, slightly off the brakes when you start turning in. Keep in that same gear and then boot it as early as you can to get the power down into the last corner. A lot of different lines that get taken here. In general, a deep entry, a late apex, and an early on the gas is what gives you the best going up the straight. We're 7 of the possible 16 laps, almost 10 minutes into the 25. We're riding on board with Gerald Fourie from Robert Briggs. Let's have a look, see how they look all around the circuit right now. There you can see how that one plays itself out, and who has not been into the pits. So Michael Stephen is the lead man that has been into the pits already, as we watch Gerald Fourie behind Robert Briggs, very, very close. Paul Webber still in there behind Andre Steenkamp, and Willem Botha is within a second of Wesley Lewin. That's the big battles that's out there. But I don't see Gerald Fourie finding a way around Robert Briggs. Robert Briggs is driving a faultless race at this stage, leaving no gaps whatsoever. Look at that, right there with him. You can't get any closer. Does he go for the dive? Does he go cover the line? That's what he does, cover the line. You want to go past? You go past on the outside, knowing that there was not that much space there. Now makes a bit of space between the two of them through that left-right hander. Is he going to go for the dive now on the inside line? Gerald Fourie's got to go for it sooner or later. He's going to go for the outside line, the early break, the late apex, the easy quick on the gas. Makes no difference because Robert has not made any errors whatsoever. Lap 7 of a possible 16. No reason at this stage for Robert Briggs to go in. He's got open ground in front of him. In fact, he's got tons of space in front of him, so no reason for him to worry at this stage of the fight. Just 700ths of a second between the two of them. Looking just a little bit further back behind the front two, there is Graham Stephen. He's slightly lost touch with them, and you've got 1.4 seconds, so not a train smash. Driver of the race so far, Sandra Bakari, utterly brilliant. You gotta love those colors. Remember when Nigel Mansell, red 5 in Formula 1 with the Labatt's and Canon sign writing on it? Well, that is a carbon copy of that. He's got Leon van Wyk in the Being IT car there completely behind him. Leon van Wyk putting on a lot of pressure, just a tenth of a second between the two of them as they work their way up the hill. And Sandro Bakari riding faultlessly once again. I must say, let's put it in real terms. Sandro Bakari and Peter van der Spy, the top two Grandmasters. And you would tend to think, well, Captain Pete, having raced flies, jets and what have you, Well, so does Sandro. He's also racing. Oh, the dive by Leon van Wyk on the outside. You'd have tend to have thought, yeah, well, Peter van der Space should do it. Sandro Bakari is giving him beans this year. Sandro Bakari could very possibly take away the Grandmasters title. It's not impossible for this season. Once again, Robert Briggs and Gerald Fourie and Graham Stephen. There's the error. There's the error by Robert Briggs. That was what the other guys were waiting for. Both Graham and Robert waiting for something. Well, might as well go into the pits, and there he does. And as he goes in, Sandro Bakari will come flying past. He brings with him Leon van Wyk. Stephen McCarthy has not come into that picture yet. He's quite a long way back. There comes Stephen McCarthy. Andre Steenkamp, one car further back, because that's Robert Briggs, that's in between them. There's Paul Webber. Behind Paul Webber will be Swys Hubert. Then comes Willem Botha, but remember, Willem Botha has been in and out of the pits. What about Robert Briggs? Robert Briggs is coming out of the pits, and there's Robert Briggs. He comes out ahead of Willem Botha. That makes them first and second overall. There's Robert Briggs, and there is Willem Botha. That's the difference between first and second of those that have already been into the pits. 9 laps out of a possible 16, 14 minutes out of the 25. We just passed halfway, and that is the 2 lead cars at this stage of the fight of the guys that have been in and out of the pits. But now remember, that man Gerald Fourie, with Graham Stephen in tow, and the brilliant drive. It's just getting better and better. Sandro Bakari, he's really doing amazing stuff. They still to go into the pits. Leon van Wyk will find himself a little bit further back with the being IT entry. There is quite a gap between himself and Gerald Fourie. Fourie is 37.0, 37.5 by Graham. It means that Gerald has pulled away by a half a second. Sandro Bakari goes in. Oh, I see a spinner there in the background. I'm not sure who that was was spinning. You can see it at the top end of your picture. Sandro Bakari is going to the pits. Stephen McCarthy's gone into the pits. I suppose Andre Steenkamp's gone straight through. No, Andre Steenkamp goes in as well. He decides it's also time for him. What about Swys Hubert? Swys Hubert goes through. He's got open ground in front of him to Stephen McCarthy. So he's quite happy to keep on trucking and go straight through. 15.5 minutes in. Gerald Fourie. Gerald Fourie, that is still leading them out from Graham Stephen, Leon van Wyk and Paul Webber. Willem Botha very, very close to the back end of Robert Briggs. That is a massive battle that's going on between the two of them. And remember that Robert Briggs and Willem Botha is first and second on the track of the guys that have already been in and out of the pit. So that is possibly the fight for the lead. The whole thing is when this man goes in, Gerald Fourie, where will he come out of the pits in terms of where Robert, Willem and Sandro are? And I say once again, Sandro Bakari, what a drive that he is on at the moment now. Amazing stuff what he's doing. He's done his stop already, and Gerald Fourie comes in. What about Graham Stephen? Graham Stephen comes in as well. Leon van Wyk, what is he going to do as he comes through the corner? Is Leon going to go in? He's got open ground in front of him. Leon decides to go in as well. Paul Webber is the next man that's going to be coming through there. Paul Webber and Swys Hubert. Willem Botha still got a long way to go. How far's Graham Stephen with his pit stop? Well, he's already stopped. It's a matter of time before he's going to get going again. Where's Willem Botha? Will Willem Botha be able to get past the pit exit before they come out? It's Graham Stephen that's on the pit exit. There is Graham Stephen. Where's Willem Botha? There's Willem Botha. Graham Stephen, will he make it? Yes! Graham Stephen comes out ahead of Willem Botha and Robert Briggs. And that, in fact, is your front three. There's Graham Stephen. In and out. Willem Botha. In and out. Robert Briggs. In and out. Gerald Fourie. In and out. Leon van Wyk. In and out. Brilliant stuff. Michael Stephen fighting off the attack there by Sandro Bakari in the Labatt's Cannon car. I'm astounded by what Sandro is doing. I think we must take him out of Grandmasters and just put him into the Masters because he can ride with the boys. It's as simple as that. He's there. He's spot on. Stephen McCarthy, not that far behind him. It's about a 12-second gap between himself and Sandro. Oh, pushing it very, very hard. But Johan Engelbrecht has now gone into the pits as well. So he'll be the last of the pit stoppers as such. Remember, you could go in at the end of lap number 1. Stephen McCarthy on the edge. He's decided 13 seconds to Sandro is doable, and he fancies that. And Willem Botha and Robert Briggs, they've just done a little bit of a change up. Oh, that is netcode that is creating that. You can see how it flashes on the screen. Graham Stephen, Willem Botha, Robert Briggs, Gerald Fourie, Leon van Wyk. Oh, Leon will be dying. He wants to get to that group. He's going to hope that they're going to hold one another up. There's the front three that he's looking for. That front three that's at the bottom end of your screen, that's where Leon's got to get to. Is he doing the times? 2:01.23. Keeping in mind that the others have just been in the pits. That doesn't mean very much at this stage of the fight. As Willem Botha launches an attack on Graham Stephen. Lots of respect between them. Take that wide line, take the early cut, get the draft. Is he going to go for the dive after the left-hander as they go up the hill? He's going to go on that right-hand side. Is he going to go for that dive for the corner? He's set himself up for it. And yes, he holds on to it. Look how much space they give one another. How's that respect, gentlemen, as they go into that blind rise corner? Willem Botha goes to the front. Willem Botha ahead now of Graham Stephen. Graham's going to close right up. Is he going to go for the dive when they go into that left-right? Yes, he is. He's going to go for the dive. And there's no ways he can be held out. He's in deep enough. He will make... They go through together and they make contact, unfortunately. Willem goes off the track and comes back onto the track. Gerald Fourie came out the best of that one. Well, they had given so much space and tried their best. Desperate stuff there now by Willem, touching the back end of Robert Briggs, but he's on the wrong side of the circuit because Leon van Wyk's going to climb in there now as well and see what he can do. Gerald Fourie, Willem Botha deep and wide as they come through underneath the Donington Park.co.uk bridge they go. Lap 12, 20 minutes, 17 seconds into this race from the top and down. It's Gerald Fourie, it's Willem Botha, it's Robert Briggs, it's Leon van Wyk, desperately hoping that they mess one another around. He's got Michael Stephen right there with him as well. In fact, Michael Stephen's just put in the fastest lap. He says, if you can't get to them, I will get to them and I'll go and play up front, because he needs to get to those guys. There's still 3 seconds for Michael Stephen to get onto. And the two of them have a massive trouble. And look at that. Well, Leon, you can't do much more damage than that to it. And will he be able to get that car to actually go again? Well, surprisingly enough, the car still goes. But Leon van Wyk drops down a long way. Willem Botha, having lost out to Gerald Fourie, he's going to reiterate that fight. He is not finished yet, is Willem Botha. Robert Briggs is looking, watching, waiting. Sandro Bakari holding out on Graham Stephen. Graham Stephen, although he still finds himself in 4th overall in class, he could play it safe for the last 3.5 minutes, not worry too much about Sandro, and make sure that he's got that 4th overall. But it's a boy thing. You know what it is. You got to win it. He goes deep on the inside, forces Sandro to take a wide line. Sandro, being the gentleman that he is, trying to make sure that all things work well in our iRacing, takes a wide line and lets that one fly. He's got nothing to lose. He knows he's got a big gap there on the Leonardo Bakari and Peter van der Spey that we haven't seen much of in this race at all. And Gerald Fourie puts in the fastest lap. Gerald Fourie from Willem Botha, from Robert Briggs, Graham Stephen, with the hard driving Sandro Bakari behind him. Not that far behind them is Michael Stephen. After that massive tumble is Leon van Wyk directly behind. That is then Stephen McCarthy, that's still coming into turn number 1, 13 seconds further back, 2.5 minutes to go in this one. Paul Webber, the next man there behind him, as Paul Webber has managed to stay ahead of the Batmobile of Andre Steenkamp. 3 seconds further back, Swayze Hubert, he's had quite a quiet race. Raymond Duggan ran into problems in the Ironbrew car earlier on and went flying off the circuit. He's managed to recover through to that 12th position, but that's about as close as he's been able to get up until now. It's all about Gerald Fourie, that's just posted the fastest overall lap. Let's look at the last lap times, the way they are. Yep, on the very last lap that they just did now, with less than 2 minutes to go, Gerald Fourie, that's leading out from Willem Botha on the light and fuel load, even with the slightly worn tires, has got enough in hand to now make that gap and make it safe for himself, between himself and Willem Botha. But Robert Briggs hasn't given up yet on a Willem. He is right there. Gerald Fourie posts yet another fastest lap, so he is really in the groove. Robert Briggs desperately trying to get onto the back end of Willem Botha, going for that second overall. He's going to try and force Willem into some sort of error to be able to get through there. Sandro Bakari, the leading Grandmaster, that comes through that ahead of the recovering Graham Stephen. Michael Stephen further back. The Stephen brothers not having such a great time. The recovering Leon van Wyk, and that's pretty much your top 7 as we are in the last minute. So let's follow through on that man that's just doing it all right. Oh, look at that battle behind him. Willem Botha, Robert Briggs. It's not over. Robert Briggs, we've got to watch that one. Robert Briggs all over the back end, trying to do everything and anything that he can. He's just got 1, 2, 3, 4 more corners to go, and that is where it's going to come to an end, and the checkered flag is going to come down. But that is about the last chance. I think he's too far back at this stage of the fight to be able to do anything else. And out of the second last corner goes Gerald Fourie. There he goes now through the last corner, and Gerald Fourie will take the checkered flag. There's the checkers. Goes through for Gerald. Willem Botha makes it ahead of Robert Briggs. Sandro Bakari, utterly brilliant. Driver of the race, Sandro Bakari, ahead of Graham Stephen and Michael Stephen. What a feat is that, to beat out on them and Leon van Wyk. That is utterly brilliant. Sandro Bakari, definitely the driver of the race. Stephen McCarthy kept it all nice and smooth and clean in the 33 car. That's a number that he used when he raced supercars at Killarney International Raceway back in the day. Stephen McCarthy ahead of Paul Webber. Andre Steenkamp, the next man coming through, is Swayze Hubert. Raymond Duggan right behind that. A little bit further back comes JJ van der Merwe. Remember, he had that incident right at the beginning of the race where he went off. A whole tangle up of cars. Peter van der Spey, we haven't actually even seen him in the Lotus and John Player Special Colors. He's been a long way down. It just hasn't come together. Is it the John Player? No, he doesn't have the John Player on there. It's just the Lotus Colors. As Peter van der Spey comes through ahead of Leonardo Bakari. So that's second and third in the Grand Masters. And then a quiet race day for Wesley Lewin. That comes in 7 seconds behind that. And then, as we know, Carl Lawrence, he's backed out of it, and he said no can do. He's not going any further. So there we go. That was race number 1 for Formula Fords at Donington. Hope you enjoyed that one. Remember, race number 2 is going to be the invert of the top 12, and with that invert of the top 12 will then bring a whole new shape to this. And I do believe that if you look at the way they ended up there, it was definitely a perfect way to set up a magnificent second race for the day. Give us a couple of seconds. There'll be a 3-minute warm-up, and then we will go into race number 2. You with Second Gear Productions, Gary Gazzo, Mike Side, bringing you as much information and the exciting shots as what we possibly can.